Everyone here when I speak like this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yep. All good. Brilliant. Okay to go now? Yep. So I want to start off with a Bible verse that I came across recently. Well, that I've been rereading again. Philippians chapter 2, verse 13. Can anyone read that out for us? Philippians chapter 2, verse 13. Whoever gets it first.
Yeah. For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him.
Yeah. Any other translations?
NIV says, "For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to His good purpose."
Yeah. So two very nice verses, two very nice translations. Two words, two parts stood out to me when I was reading this. It's God works and His good purpose. And it's essentially saying God will use us, God will work through us for His purpose. Not I'll do the work to achieve God's purpose, or God will work and He'll get my purpose. But God's work, God's purpose. Now I like that sort of verse because it challenges me. I think it makes me think. Stop. Am I living like that? Is there something true in my life? And I would, from a personal standpoint, I would say I'm trying to get to that point, but honestly, I'm not 100% there. But it's definitely when we read these verses, I think, yes, that's something I'm going to strive for, to aim for. That God will work through me to achieve His purpose. Now, I'd like to talk today about a guy that this verse reminded me that God will do the work and God will achieve His purpose. And this guy's relatively unknown to some, even within his hometown of Barnsley, Yorkshire. And maybe that's ringing a couple of bells to some people. Maybe not. There's a guy named James Hudson Taylor that I found very fascinating recently. And it doesn't surprise me that not many people know him. We've got to travel back to 1832. So he's quite a guy from history, not someone relevant or not someone recent. Sorry, in our friends, not in our lives. So, 1832. Who is this guy? So, he was born to into a Protestant family. He was born in Barnsley, Yorkshire, as I said, in the UK. And for those in the UK, his work mainly was outside of the UK. You know, he was working in China. So for those Chinese Christians that we may know, or the tens of millions that are here now, he's definitely a significant figure in their lives and in the history of Christianity in China. And we're going to look at his 51 years of service. Well, not the entire thing, but three standout points and characteristics about his faith that I thoroughly enjoyed and I thought were quite inspiring, or something that I would like to apply to my own life. So where did his journey in China begin? It all begins, I think, with his grandparents, his great-grandparents, them being missionaries themselves. And I believe, apparently, his parents prayed a prayer, and they said, God, if you give us a son, he will give his life to China. Before he's even born, his parents apparently said this prayer, which, looking at his history, is quite phenomenal. It's quite amazing that even before he's born, his parents already said, "Look, Lord, give us a son and he'll give his life to China. And so from this, he grows up with that almost burden on his shoulders, actually, that through his young years up to his teenage years, he's living in this environment, but he does face turmoil as to where he should be going. He's getting distracted with worldly views like money, jobs, how much do I need to live? And what job should I do? What do my friends think? Apparently he also faced a bit of trouble at school and from bullies and work about his faith, which is quite surprising given the social attitude of the time for 1800s England. So it's definitely troubled as to which direction he should go. And suddenly one day, he's out there praying. He's really wrestling with this question: what do I do? Where am I going? My parents are these wonderful teachers, preachers. What am I going to do, God? I'm 17, 18 years old. And he says, it was almost as Jesus came to him and said, you're going to go to China. Now this guy, he's in South Yorkshire, which is miles away from China. And at that time, you know, you either cross across, you can't just fly to like a 14 hours, which is difficult, but it's nothing compared to several weeks on boat, across land. So it's quite a challenge, but he takes it on with stride. He says, yes, I have a conviction to go to China. And so he decides that he's gonna go to medical school. It's going to be his way to China. He's going to set up some medical clinics. He's going to help those in need through the medical industry. And I think relevant for us, his choice to go to this higher education, to go to medicine, was not because he wanted to be a doctor or a surgeon. It's because he needed to get to China. So imagine going through all that university. I know for the UK students and everyone, it's difficult. And to not even necessarily it be your focus is quite a challenge. So I don't know, whether you want to be a doctor or a surgeon, that's great, or whether you want to do that, it's definitely a challenging point, which I found quite inspiring. His conviction, it doesn't matter what it is, he's going to get to China. He's got some strong convictions there. Now, at the moment in China in the 1800s, there was conflict throughout the century. And unfortunately at this time, as he was becoming a teenager, it was sort of the Opium Wars time, which unfortunately Britain had quite a big hand in. So travel inland apparently was very difficult. And that's what God was telling him to do. He's going to say, go to China, go to the ports and go inland. But that currently wasn't possible. It was only sort of the inland ports he's going to do. So he's facing challenges before he's even left the country. And on top of that, another interesting thing I found out was that apparently when inspecting or learning about an infected cadaver, he was cutting with a knife, you know, looking at the infection, and he slipped and he cuts himself. Very small cut, but because of the body and the time, it would have been a death sentence. So at this point, the doctors are saying, look, you're dead meat, mate. You're not going to last long. There's no way you're going to travel all the way to China. And at this point, you're thinking, oh, God, is that really the way to go? But James Hudson stuck it out, and he had his strong convictions. He says, look, I'm going to go to China. That's what God's telling me to do. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter like what I want to do or I want to achieve. That God has told me go to China. And that's the first point of conviction. That's the first point I thoroughly enjoyed about his character. And that's something I want to have. If God tells me, I will obey, I will command. God will work through me to achieve his purpose. And I want to be able to say that proudly and with the conviction that he has here. So he gets to China, finally, after all this difficulty, and he starts preaching and ministering with the locals. and it's difficult. It's sort of an unreached area, and there's not many missionaries there, maybe a handful. And so he starts to learn the language, and something clicks in his brain. He thinks, you know, these people are calling me, when I dress in my Western style clothes, apparently they used to call him the Black Devil when he'd go around, and they wouldn't, I think because of his clothing and the black clothing they wear, but they call him like names, and he wouldn't be able to get to people's houses. So he's suffered, he's traveled all this way, and then suddenly people are shutting him out. So he does this revolutionary idea in missionary, and he changes his appearance, which for Westerners at the time was sort of frowned upon. In this, even with his peers, it was looked on with a bit of disdain. And I have a quote here from James Hudson Taylor. He says, "Let us in everything unsinful become Chinese. Make it by all means. We save some. Let us adopt their costume, their language, study, imitate their habits, and live in their houses." And he takes this idea, and he almost surrenders himself. He surrenders. He says, "Look, I'm not going to bring any of my Western understanding. I'm not going to bring my British culture. I'm not going to drink tea every 20 minutes with milk. I'm going to, you know, he's going to adopt. He wants to be as the people there, as the locals do, which is revolutionary, brilliant. But I know for us, we might think, well, the doi, yeah. If you want to settle in with people, you want to sort of adapt their customs. But at the time, it was relatively a new thing. And I like this because he almost reflects Jesus's character in a way here. With his own faith, he's seeing the examples of faith. He sees Jesus, the ultimate example, and he thinks, you know, this guy, Jesus, he came from heaven. He gave up his heavenly body, his heavenly status, and he fit in with the locals. He was a carpenter. He wore the sandals and the same clothes that they wore. And Jesus essentially was vastly successful in his ministry. I mean, looking back at it now, millions of Christians, and it's fair to say Jesus was very successful. And to take that idea, to truly follow in Jesus's footsteps, I think is very commendable. And that's the second thing I find very fascinating about this guy. That he actually sees the example that Jesus makes and he tries to follow it. Maybe he's not 100% accurate. Maybe he keeps some of his customs or some of his culture, but he tries to follow it. And I find that absolutely wonderful. Something that I'd like to do myself. Something I'd try to do. So that's the second part. And then through his journey, at this point, he's been 6 years in China. His missionary becomes more successful, but he has to go back home for medical reasons. He's not doing very well, this guy. He gets it rough. And he goes home, he writes a very famous book for the Chinese people. The title was, gosh, sorry, I've written it down somewhere. Bear with me a second. Title is just me for this brief second. About the claims and faith that the Chinese have. And he gives statistics and about the research that he's done there to try and get the British people to understand what's happening in China. And he's there, he's ill, he's thinking, he's resting, and he comes up with this idea. And I don't know if he was inspired by Philippians chapter 2, verse 13, but the similarities are uncanny. He decides that we're going to go back to China again, and we're just going to go through God's power, God's strength. God will provide. And he says to those he works with, look, I'm not going to be able to pay you a salary. You know, I'm not going to be able to provide all the safety and security. We're just going to live on God's faith. And they do that. And they travel to China. And within vast years that they're there, he faces again, challenges. His wife died, one of his kids died from disease, but his ministry there was incredible. Thousands of Christians in China. Now, I won't go into too much detail about his life, but after applying that sort of idea that God will work and God will work through me, he will achieve something, and he did. And he practically applied this verse. And so that's the third thing that I find absolutely fascinating and inspiring about this guy, about what he's done, what he's achieved. And I don't know too much about missionary or Chinese Christians. That's something I'd love to learn about, love to learn and meet people with that. But to see this example of this character, this guy, is inspiring for me personally, because I think I can relate a little bit. You know, I'm not exactly going to China and traveling far away, but I'm in Germany. I'm in a new land, a new country, and I want to do the same thing. I don't want to copy what he did, but applying these verses and these attitudes to my character, so I can meet other people as a Christian in this way, I think is a really nice example and something we can apply and change in our own lives. You know, if you're meeting a new culture, new friends, he says, in everything unsinful. So as long as we stay to our faith, doesn't matter what we do. You know, we could change clothes, speak even, and yeah, even when we meet new people, new friends, you can adapt, be engaging with them. Is something we can apply in our own lives. And that conviction, I wonder, I don't have an answer, but can you imagine doing many years in medical school and then God says, all right, that's it. You're not going to finish. You're going to go to China. And you're thinking, oh, but I've worked really hard and like, surely in medical, I'm really good. This is the right way.
So he didn't finish his medical course.
No, well, he didn't finish. He went to China and then he managed to finish when he came back. God still provided in that way, that he didn't even have plans to finish, and God allowed him to finish, worked in, I don't know what he became, but like a general surgeon, or he finished at surgeon school. Yeah. And not just for medical, I chose medicine because that's what he did, example, but you know, any education career, you know, you could do 25 years at the same job. You know, you're going to get that top promotion. And then God says, not quite. This is what I want for you. I want to work through you to achieve my will. And yeah, it's an interesting question. What do we do? It's difficult. And some people have an answer, some people don't. But yeah, thank you for listening. I hope that was interesting or insightful.
Really good.